believe is going to help us to understand where Nigeria is and what is happening at this time. It's important that we understand it, because if you don't understand, if you if when people lack understanding of times and seasons, it's almost like you should cry for them. Jesus was looking at Jerusalem. He said, because you don't understand what belongs to your peace. Jesus was looking at Jerusalem and crying. He said, these people don't understand. So when people have no understanding of the seasons, or cannot have no understanding of seasons, it's just like you can't know what to do, because there is a season reason for everything that people experience. You cannot separate your experiences from your seasons. I say it all the time, but I know I can't say it enough. You cannot isolate your experiences from your seasons. You can't divorce season from experiences. They go together. The reason for rain is rainy season. The reason for snow is winter. You can't. There's just no way to do it. If you want to say the truth to ourselves, everything that happens, has a season factor. There's a part that season plays. It's not everything, but there is a part that season plays in everything we go through. Look at the lives of children. There's a time when, the child begins to stool and begins to vomit, and it's all about teething. It's not anything, it's teething. It's teething, So when a child is weaned, they have certain problems. As we grow up, you see certain features in your bodies, and it's all about season and growth. So it is impossible, and I wish I can say it louder. It is impossible to understand all that you are going through, without understanding the season that you are going through. And that's the simplest way to say it. But I can go on to say that, seasons affect us in two ways. The season we express and the season we go through. These things shape our lives, shape our experiences. If a woman is pregnant, she has to experience certain things that other people might look strange to other people. But the reason for those experiences is not anything else. It's pregnancy. It's season. Season. So we cannot shut our eyes to Nigeria's season and try to find answers to Nigeria's problems. And it's not just about Nigeria, it's about every other nation on the face of the earth. You can't close your ears and close your eyes to season, and then you're looking for answers to what's happening in the land. No, it's not possible. So I'm going to be sharing some things, about the season that Nigeria is in, and that's going to help us to understand. So that when we pray aright, because the book of Zechariah says, ask the Lord for rain in the time of rain. That means that in some way our prayer should line up with our understanding of seasons. Ask for things in their time. So we need to know what time it is, and then we know what we ought to ask. That's part of praying according to the will of God. So I'm just going to take some time to be able to explain, where we are and why we are seeing what we're seeing. And, to just a little be ahead of myself is like to say, the protest we are seeing is not something that is going to go away tomorrow. And I'm not just talking about this 10-day protest that is planned nationwide. I'm just saying that, we're going to see more and more of that. In the next 6 years, up to 2030, we're still going to be seeing these protests and seeing these agitations and all that because of where we are. All right, so let me begin to say this, that so where is Nigeria at this time? It's easy to, there are two things that change, that determine, that help us to reckon the season of a nation. The first is the age of the nation from the time of independence. Nations have history before their independence, but you can't be held accountable, until you become self-governing. Israel did not, God said to them on the day of Passover, I said, this shall be the beginning of your months. That wasn't the beginning of Israel. There was Abraham, yes. There was Isaac and Jacob. Jacob himself called Israel. But you don't reckon the history of Israel from Abraham or from Jacob. You reckon the history of Israel from the Passover, when they became independent from Egypt. So you reckon the history of nations, you reckon the time of nations from their independence. So the age of a nation from independence is one of the things that shape that helps us to reckon the season of the nation. Just like you count a child's age from when the child is born, not from the 9 months the child spent in the womb. You don't say, when you are asked how old you are, you add the 9 months you spend in your mother's womb. No, you count from when you came out of the womb. Any nation that has not come to independence is still in the womb. Is when you now come out, and that's when you begin to reckon the age of a nation. So the first thing that helps us to reckon the age of a nation is the independence of the nation. The other thing that matters in reckoning the season of nations is the changes that come with leadership. Every leader brings a new season upon a nation. Daniel chapter 2 says that God changes times and seasons. He raises up one king and he brings down others. So meaning that anytime that anytime that a new leader rises in a nation, the leader comes with a new season. So every leader comes with a season, brings a season upon the nation. So you may not understand, so you know the season of the nation from the age of the nation. You also know the season of the nation from the leader who is there. Is it the 5th leader, the 6th leader, the 7th leader, the 20th leader, or that? Every leader brings a season upon the nation. Now, the other thing that helps to shape the seasons, not just of nations, is when there is a new understanding. A new understanding changes things, brings, for example, the technology, the different that technology has changed the season of the 21st century. Technology, social media, and all that, the internet, So once there's a new understanding, or there's a new leadership, or there is a new age, these things help to shape the season of nations. So that, what does that get us now? So we're going to be looking at in this video, I'm going to be sharing about Nigeria's season from the standpoint of our age. Maybe some other time I can look at Nigeria, understanding Nigeria's season from the standpoint of her current leader. What season has Bola Ahmed Tinubu brought into Nigeria? What's this season about? What did it look like when Buhari was there and all that? So every leader comes with a season. It doesn't matter who the leader is. So Nigeria is currently in her second 49 years. Nigeria was born as a nation in 1960, October 1. So from 1960 to 2009, October, Nigeria completed the first 49 years. And the first 49 years of Nigeria was a book of Genesis season. A book of Genesis season. I have written a book, once wrote a book on the From Hannah to David. Yeah, this book is called From Hannah to David. It's the mystery of Nigeria's 7 years. This book also tells the story of what happened in Nigeria, just try to recount what happened in Nigeria from 1960 to up to 2023 or something like that. But we there is an account of the first 49 years. So from October 2009, Nigeria came into her second 49 years. And this second 49 years is a book of Exodus season, not just for Nigeria. Every nation that is on earth, when a nation is going through the second 49 years, they come into a book of Exodus season every second. The book of Exodus season, because the book of Exodus is the second book of the Bible. So Nigeria is going through the book of Exodus season. And this count 49 years from 2009, and you're going to have 2058. So until we get to 2058, October 1, Nigeria will still be within the second 49 years. Now, within this second 49 years, we have 7-year seasons. And we can always find the guiding light for these seasons in the book of Exodus. From 2009 to 2016, we went through Exodus chapters 1 to 6. Exodus chapters 1 to 6. And this is where Pharaoh and his people devised a plan how they are going to deal with Israel. This is when Boko Haram rose in Nigeria. And all kinds of agitations began, but the biggest was that, we had this insurgency in Nigeria. And that was an Egyptian craft, a Nigerian Egyptian craft to keep the people under. I'm not going to go into details in that. And mind you, this is not a political discourse. This is, I'm speaking from a prophetic perspective, something that gives us light to know how we ought to pray and how we ought to live and be able to, provide some direction, some guidance for our land. Now, from October 2016 to October 2023, the, kind of people became awakened. It's not just that, an awakening came. It's just like sending Moses out. Moses is now out to talk about the liberation of Israel. The agitation increased, and it was like, up until the 2023 elections, it just looked like, no, we are out of bondage. Nigerians' eyes are open. We can't be the same again. Things cannot continue. That was an awakening. And to a very large extent, Nigeria came out of Egyptian bondage in 2023. By October 2023, it was like we are out of bondage. I'm going to explain that to you. So 2016 to 2023 was an Exodus chapter 7 to Exodus chapter 12 season. So people began to talk about a Passover season in Nigeria, but they were actually speaking the truth. So the truth that I want you to know is that Nigeria is no longer in Egyptian bondage. But the Egyptians have not given up. Two things. The Egyptians have not given up, because even when Israel came out of Egypt, Pharaoh said, no, we can't allow this. He still pursued the people to the Red Sea. So we're having that. The truth, and I want you to believe it, God has broken the power of Egyptian bondage over Nigeria. Nigeria has been liberated. But Egypt is still hopeful that this is not going to happen. No, this is not going to happen. No, nothing can change. Israel cannot go. We're still going to be there. And I'm going to show you that in a moment. I'm going to show you that in a moment. So from 2023 October to 2030 October, Nigeria will be going through or is going through Exodus 13 to Exodus 18. Exodus 13 to Exodus 18. Now, before I go further on that, I want you to understand that every 7-year season of a nation also has a guiding light in the book and chapters of the Bible that correspond to it. Now, I began by saying that every 49-year season of a nation has guiding light in the book of the Bible that corresponds to it. So Nigeria's first 49 years has a guiding light in the book of Genesis, and one of the things that happened in the book of Genesis was that that's where the 12 tribes emerged. That's where the 12 tribes emerged from 4 women. That's also what happened within our first 49 years. That Nigeria, out of four regions, we became 12 states in 1967, and then the 12 states just began to split. But we came up as 12 states. And the one who gave Nigeria 12 states was the third leader of Nigeria. Just like Jacob, who became the 12 tribes, was the third from Abraham. I don't want to go into details in that, but I just want you to see that something is playing out, and it plays out for different nations in different ways, but this is what you have in Nigeria. And the one who even divided Nigeria into 12 states is Yakubu Gowon, and that sounds like Jacob, because it's Jacob also that became 12 tribes in Israel. But the point I'm trying to make that every 49-year season of a nation has a guiding light in the book of the Bible that corresponds to it. So the first 49 years of Nigeria is a book of Genesis season, and the second 49 years of Nigeria is a book of Exodus season. Now, and I'm adding that every 7-year season, because this 49 years is simply 7 times 7. So every 7-year season also has a guiding light in the book of the Bible, that corresponds to it. So our first 7 years is a book of Genesis season, 1960 to 1966, or 67, and then 1967 to 1974, that's our second 7 years. And it has a guiding light in Exodus. And that's where we had the Biafra revolution, that led to let my people go, and Nigeria had to fight to keep, one part of the nation from seceding. So you can see second 7 years, and now we're into second 49 years. And so the third 7 years of Nigeria was a book of Leviticus season. And I can tell you many of the stars that are shining here today were people that got recruited within that time, within the third 7 years of Nigeria. These are the Levites of Nigeria. They carry the Leviticus Ark in Nigeria. Whether you talk about Pastor Kumuyi, or talk about David Oyedepo, you're talking about Baba Deboye and all that. These are people that got raised within this time, gave a ministry, and they are still the ark bearers. They are still among the major ark bearers today. Now, in the fourth 7 years of Nigeria, that's a book of Numbers season. That's a book of Numbers season. As a Buhari Diabon season that didn't last a long time. And then we have the book of Deuteronomy season, which is the fifth 7 years. The book of Joshua season, which is the 6 7 years, and then the book of Judges season, which is the 7 7 years, and the book of Ruth season, which is the 8 7 years. And it is within that 8 7 years that we have someone from a minority group, leading Nigeria. Good luck, Jonathan. And how did he come to power? Just like Ruth came into power. Ruth came into the covenant by reason of misfortune. And good luck, Jonathan also, rose into power by reason of misfortune. He became a governor because something happened to his governor, and then he became a president because something happened to his principal. Just like Ruth, because this happened and that happened, Ruth came into the covenant. And now, the 9 7 years of Nigeria is a book of First Samuel season. And that's just the one we ended in 2023. And from 2023, we got into the book of Second Samuel season. This is the 10th 7 years of Nigeria. And Second Samuel is the 10th book of the Bible. Now, I told you before that Nigeria is out of bondage, but the Egyptians have not given up. They haven't. The same thing you see in the 10th book of the Bible. Saul was already dead. The first chapter of Second Samuel was the lamentation for Saul. But Abner still took Saul's son and made him king. It's like, even though Saul is dead, we're not going to give up. We're going to we're going to just hold on. And by the time you get to chapter 4, the house of Saul eventually collapsed. So Nigeria is out of bondage, but the Egyptians still are hopeful that this is not going to happen. We are still in charge, but they are not dealing with truth. Okay, now, so at this point, within the 10 7 years of Nigeria, from 2023 October to 2030 October, Nigeria will be going through Exodus 13 to Exodus 18, as well as going through the book of Second Samuel, the entire 24 chapters. Every year has some chapters. The first year has 4 chapters. Second year, in our 10 7 years, 4 chapters of Second Samuel. Third years, 4 chapters. And then the rest of the years will have 3 chapters each. Now, so what happened? Why are we going through what we are going through, right? We thought that after the 2023 elections, things are going to change and we will just have a wonderful thing. Nigeria will so change and everything will be okay. Education free, medicines free, light will be everywhere, petrol will be everywhere, everything will just be okay. It's like to see transformation, but that's not what we saw. And I'm going to take you back to Exodus and chapter 13. Exodus 13, what we see in Exodus 13 will help us to understand what is happening in Nigeria at this time. In Exodus chapter 13, verse 17, it says, "Then it came to pass, when Pharaoh had left the people to go, that God did not lead them by the way of the land of the Philistines, although that was near. For God said, lest perhaps the people change their minds when they see war and return to Egypt." So God didn't lead the children of Israel through the way of the Philistines. He said, although that was near. Although that was near. But he led them through the way of the wilderness. And the wilderness journey made it look like Egypt was better. And that's what we're experiencing at this time in this nation. It made it look like Egypt was better. Go through history. There is no nation that has found it easy within the second 49 years. Not one nation. Not one nation. The United States had their civil war within the second 49 years. Civil war. And it was the battle of the old trying to control the new and say, no, we're not going to. Slave masters did not want to give up. And that led to the war. And the slave masters lost. And their slaves were made free. Because in the second 49 years of the United States, America was going through the book of Exodus, the season of let my people go. Look at Libya, second 49 years. Syria, second 49 years. Think of any nation within the second 49 years of independence. It's a very turbulent season. The state of Israel is going through her second 49 years. Look at all that is going on right now. Okay. Now, so we're going through Exodus 13 to Exodus 18. So God led these people through the wilderness. So if you ask anybody if anything is changing in Nigeria, you're probably going to get no for an answer. They will tell you nothing is changing. In fact, everything is worse now. There's nothing. We're going back. But that's not the truth. The truth is, what is making it look like there is no change is because the old order does not want to give up. The slave masters, the pharaohs, the controlling powers of the previous season still believe that they have power to steer this ship to where it's going. And that's the challenge. And you saw it in 2 Samuel. The first 4 chapters, which is the guiding light for Nigeria's 64th year, beginning from October 23. Although Saul was dead, Abner single-handedly took Ishbosheth and put him there and said, you be the king. But you know what happened? Internal strife was what destroyed the house of Saul. Abner wanted the woman that Saul left. And then Ishbosheth said, you can't have her. Then he disconnected from Ishbosheth and went to, join forces with David. There's something about the spirit of Abner. Abner just wants his own thing, and if he doesn't get it, forget. Abner is not loyal to anybody. Abner is not loyal to anybody. Was not loyal to Saul, because right where Saul was, he would be sleeping. That David had to confront him, say, Abner, is that how you take care of your master? So Abner now wanted to make peace with David, and Joab killed him. But in chapter 4 of 2 Samuel, the servants of Ishbosheth beheaded him and took the head and the crown to David. So what destroyed the house of Saul came from inside it. What destroyed the house of Saul? How did Pharaoh perish? Pharaoh perished at the Red Sea. Pharaoh perished at the Red Sea because he wanted to pursue Israel, and so he perished there. So trying to hold on to control is very destructive. May God have mercy on Nigeria. Now, so we see that you see the first reason for the problem is that the old order still wants to hold on to power. The second reason is that God did not choose the very familiar way. He chose the way of the wilderness. And right now, God has chosen to lead Nigeria out of Egyptian bondage through the way of the wilderness. through the way of the wilderness. And you know, as Israel journeyed on this road, there were many protests. Many protests. We're going to see one of these protests. In Exodus chapter 14, when Pharaoh heard that the children of Israel had gone the way of the wilderness, he pursued them to the Red Sea, and then Israel began to protest against Moses. Verse 10, and when Pharaoh drew near, the children of Israel lifted their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians marched after them. So they were very afraid, and the children of Israel cried out to the Lord. Then they said to Moses, because there was no grave in Egypt, have you taken us away to die in the wilderness? Why have you so dealt with us to bring us up out of Egypt? So Egypt was better because of what they were going through. Remember, two things are happening. Egypt does not want to give up. So that made the heart of Israel afraid. These people are coming after us. These people are coming after us. These people are coming after us. Look at them, look at them, look at them. They're coming after us. So Egypt, not willing to let Israel go is part of the problem. And God gives understanding to those who have ears. The second problem is divine, that God chose the way of the wilderness. He chose the way of the wilderness. It was not the devil that chose the way of the wilderness. It wasn't Israel that chose the way of the wilderness. So something happened to Israel that Israel didn't choose. And it's looking like, yeah, God chose the path we are going. This is not the path that we would have chosen, but God chose the path of the wilderness for Nigeria to get out of bondage. So the people began to protest. So you have protest number one. You have this protest. They said, why have you done this to us? Is this not the word that we told you in Egypt, saying, let us alone that we may serve the Egyptians? For it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than we should die in the wilderness. Haven't you heard people say, the time of Buhari was better. Buhari time. It was better for us. But during Buhari time, we were crying. But now we're saying Buhari's time was really better. And in many ways, it looked like, look at the price of petrol, look at the price of things. The prices have doubled. You have money, you get into the market with money, and you can buy much. The cost of living has so risen. So people say, no, it would have been better for us to remain in Egypt. It was better, it was good. Okay. So you have reasons for the hardship of the wilderness season. There is a divine part in this, that God has chosen the wilderness path to lead us out. Are we still in Egypt? No. Nigeria is out of Egyptian bondage. But we are going out through the way of the wilderness. And this way is not familiar. Haven't you heard Nigerians say, I have never seen something like this in all my life. I have never seen it. People say, we have seen problem in this situation, but there is nothing to compare with what we're experiencing now. This is entirely new. Look at the price of fuel, petrol. So you go to chapter 15, what you see in chapter 14 is like an insecurity problem. Pharaoh is coming against. So look at the insecurity is still happening. These killers are still here. They are still doing all that they are doing. They are still around. But God told them in Exodus chapter 14, through Moses, said, the Egyptians you see today, you shall see them again no more forever. So there is a place, there is a point in this season to deal finally with the Egyptian problem. Just as when you go to the 10th book of the Bible, the book of 2 Samuel, there is a place to settle the matter of the house of Saul forever. You won't see Saul after chapter 4. The house of Saul collapsed. But there was war between the house of Saul and the house of David. The war was there because the old was struggling with the new to see what's going to happen. So in Nigeria today, you're seeing that same struggle. The old and the house of Saul, the house of David, the struggle is still there about. Okay. So Nigeria is out of the bondage, but we're going through the way of the wilderness. And so you go to chapter 15. Oh, after they crossed the Red Sea, they sang and sang. You see, God will just be giving us some little victories here and there. Yeah, there will always be a testimony. Oh, thank God. Light is a little stable now. We thank God. But while we are still thanking God, another problem is going to come and we start shouting again and all that. But the truth, and I want you to sink into your heart, Nigeria is out of Egyptian bondage. We're only going through the wilderness. And the wilderness is not our destination, it's just a passage. This one, too, that we're seeing is going to come to pass. Nigerians, need to just hold on to God and to, trust God. We will not die, we will live. And sing the praises to God. So in chapter 15, they sang praises, but while the praises was in their mouth, something again happened. Something again happened. You see the second protest. Verse 22, so Moses brought Israel from the Red Sea. Then they went out into the wilderness of Shur. And they went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water, something as basic as water. Now, when they came to Marah, they could not drink the water of Marah, for they were bitter. Therefore, the name of the place was called Marah. What happened? Protest. And the people complained against Moses, saying, what shall we drink? So he cried to the Lord. He cried to the Lord. And the Lord showed him a tree. When he cast into the waters were made sweet. Now, you see, the people were protesting against Moses. But the difference between Moses and the leaders of many nations is not knowing how to answer the people. The people are protesting, they want answers. Even merely addressing them is not even an answer, but it's part of it. Moses will go before God and say, and God will show him what to do. I pray that our leaders will learn what it means to go before God, to ask God, help us, show us what to do. We have a good intention. We want to lead Nigerians out. Show us what to do to help your people. That's what Moses was doing. That's how Moses was solving his own problem in the wilderness. He didn't kill anybody. He didn't use any stick to hit anybody on the head. Say, I will kill you today. You are complaining against me. He didn't kill the people. He went to the Lord, and the Lord was showing him. And I want you to know, God has hidden treasures for Nigeria in this season. God has some things he had prepared, because we can never be ahead of God in making plans. There is no problem we have that God had not already solved it. God knew what, how Nigeria could be sustained at this time. But if we have people who have no way of going to God, or who don't even know they can go to God and find an answer from God, and God will give alternatives, God will show them how to survive in the wilderness, it becomes a problem. This is what Moses was doing. Moses cried to God, and the Bible said, and God showed him a tree that when he put it inside the water became sweet. May our leaders humble themselves and seek God, so that God will show them what they need to put into this hard time, so that life can become better for Nigerians. Moses didn't kill anybody. He didn't like their complaining, but he didn't kill anybody. Okay, so after they have solved the problem in chapter 15, you will think that's the last protest. Let's go to chapter 16. You're going to have another protest. Chapter 16, verse 1. And they journeyed from Elim, and all the congregation of the children of Israel came to the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month, after they had departed from the land of Egypt. Then the whole congregation of the children of Israel complained against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. This is the third protest that Moses experienced. Third protest. They complained against Moses. What was it? And the children of Israel said to them, "Oh, that we had died in the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt. When we sat by the pots of meat, and when we ate bread to the full, for you have brought us out into the wilderness to kill this whole assembly with what? Hunger." What is Nigeria experiencing now? Is it not hunger? See, hunger. That's a protest. What we're doing right now is a hunger protest. And it's part of where we are. And can I say, I'm reading Exodus chapter 16, and the person leading Nigeria now is the 16th. And in chapter 16, he said, hunger. You want to kill us with hunger. So we're also having a 16th season challenge. This is something deep. We're also having a 16th season challenge. Every leader of a nation ought to know the things that pertain to his season, because every leader brings a season upon a nation. Every leader that emerges in a nation brings a season. And if the leader does not know what ought to be done, if the leader does not receive wisdom from God to know what the divine assignment is, then the one who changes leaders will change that person. That's the truth. Because there is no authority but of God. God is the one that puts leaders, whether you like them or you don't like them. He's the one that puts leaders and places them in authority. But then they must listen to him to receive from him what he wants them to do. Can you see that Exodus 16 is addressing hunger? And that's exactly where we are now. But let's see what happened. So, you want to kill us with hunger. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a certain quota every day." This is where manna began to fall for Israel. May God give our government wisdom to bring down manna for Nigerians at this time. To bring down manna in the season of the 16th national leader, that Nigerians will have manna. This is what is happening now. Things are costly. There's no food. The other one, there was no water. Now there's no, and these are basic things. They're not even talking about clothes. They're not talking about, luxury or pleasures. They're talking about basic things. We don't have water to drink. We don't have food to eat. And you say you are taking us to a land that is flowing with milk and honey. If you can't give us water, how are you going to produce the milk? So Moses had fellowship with God, and God showed him, manna. Because God always knows what he will do. But if we don't seek him, he will not reveal his mind. He will not reveal his mind. So this is what happened. And so God gave Israel manna, and they began to eat manna. And, with all that came with it, they ate manna. They didn't know what it was. It was something new. I pray that in this season, the Lord will show Nigeria hidden treasures. Show us a way to survive that is not the familiar way. Manna was not anything that the people knew. It was something familiar. And we trust God that God is going to lead us to a way to survive this season that is not the familiar way, but it's the divine way. Give them bread from heaven. Bread from heaven. Now, You will think that's the end of the matter. Let's go to chapter 17. Let me show you the fourth. Where is the fourth or the fourth protest now? The fourth protest. Where is this protest? Where is this pain coming from? Two things. The old Egypt wanted to hold on to power, but God sorted that one out. But the other problem is the way of the wilderness. And God says, my ways are not your ways. If we were to choose the way things will go, Nigerians will not have chosen some of the things that we're experiencing now. But God does not always allow us to choose the way. We agreed on where we're going, but the way to it, he keeps that to himself. He was going to make Joseph a ruler, but the way he chose was the way of slavery and the way of imprisonment, the way of false accusation. That's the way he chose. When he was going to bring his son to glory, he chose the way of the cross and the way of death and burial. So God does not always lead the way. And I think that, it doesn't look like God is at work in Nigeria, but I can tell you God is at work in this nation. God is doing something wonderful at this time. Are we out of Egypt? I will say it over and over again. Nigeria is out of Egyptian bondage. Our present challenge is the wilderness, the way to where we're going. And it is this way we are going that is encouraging the old order, the Egyptians, to hold on, say, no, we are still in charge. Chapter 17. Then all the congregation of the children of Israel set out on their journey from the wilderness of Sin, according to the commandment of the Lord, and camped in Rephidim, but there was no water for the people to drink. Therefore the people contended. This one is no longer complaining. They contended with Moses and says, give us water that we may drink. So Moses said, why do you contend with me? Why do you tempt the Lord? And the people thirsted there for water. And the people complained against Moses and said, why is it that you have brought us up out of Egypt to kill us and our children and livestock with thirst? So Moses cried to the Lord. Can you see that again? Moses cried to the Lord. May our leaders learn to go to God. May our leaders look for help. Look for help. Look for help. May our leaders look for help from God. Moses cried to God. He didn't kill the people. He didn't terrorize the people. He didn't victimize the people. He cried to God. Well, it's so common that whoever speaks out loud, you get into trouble. But what the leader should do is, the people want answers, go to God. If you can't find answers inside everything you have, go to God. God has answer. So Moses cried to the Lord, saying, what shall I do with these people? May our leaders go to God and say, God, you have given us a people. What are we going to do? The people are hungry. The people are thirsty. The people are suffering. The people are crying. They can't feed again. They can't do. What are we going to do? Is it possible that our government can sit down and even pray by themselves, not even pray and say, God, help us? Anyhow, you know to pray. And pray. Can the leadership sincerely seek God with humility rather than intimidate people or just ignore the people? Moses said, what shall I do? For they are almost ready to stone me. This one has passed complaining. The protest is now turning violent. The people are ready to stone me. It's now a violent protest. So, but Moses cried to God, and God showed him what to do, And out of a dry stone, a dry rock, God brought water for the children of Israel. May God help our leaders to find answers to Nigeria, for Nigerians at this time. In the mighty name of Jesus Christ. And so you go from here, and the next thing you see is that Amalek rose up against Israel from the rear and fought against Israel. But God also defeated. So when you look through from Exodus 13 to Exodus, it is a tough time in the book of Exodus. It's a tough time. This is the toughest time, you will say. This is the toughest time. This is the decisive moment. So they defeated, that was a trying moment for the children of Israel. But Israel still defeated Amalek. And God said, I will wipe Amalek out. You know who are the Amalekites? No, there are Amalekites in Nigeria. Amalekites, they fight from the rear. You don't see them. They don't come face to face. These are Nigerians and their friends who are hurting Nigeria from the back. You don't see them. They hurt Nigeria from the rear. They are not enemies you know. They are not enemies you see and say, okay, I know you. You see, these ones go from the back. They are still Nigerians, but they are wounding Nigerians from the back. These are Amalekites. But in this season, God is going to settle Amalekites. God is going to settle Amalekites, settle Pharaoh. The freedom of Nigerians is here and now. Now, in chapter 18, God helped Moses. God gave wisdom to Moses that saved his life. And that we're going to see. Let me just add that. But what I just wanted to address today and in this video is the matter of protest and where they belong in this season and what ought to happen. The leaders need to seek God. The leaders need to speak to the people and not kill anybody. Not that they are out to kill, but the way is to find an answer. If you don't have the answer, ask God. Ask God. Look for an answer. Seek advice. I don't know what to do. What are we going to do? And then answer will come, and then we implement it. In chapter 18, God gave Moses wisdom through his father-in-law that told him, this matter, the way you are gathering everybody, will kill you. Divide this thing into parts. Decentralize power. Don't let everything concentrate, just you are in charge of everything. Break down. This sounds like devolution of powers. Break down this. Have leaders of 50, have captains of 100 and all that. Break down this. Let the big matters come to you. That was good advice. You know what this means? Even the United Kingdom had to do something like this in 1997. Went through devolution of powers. Devolution of powers. We praise God that the federal government has given autonomy to the local governments. That we must applaud. May it happen also in this nation that the states also will gain more power and become autonomous like the local governments, so that the big matters can come to the federal government. This is the counsel, that's the wisdom that Moses' father-in-law gave. He said, this thing, you have concentrated power to yourself. These people are going to wear you out. Everything is happening in Abuja. Everything is Abuja. Everything is happening in the central place. Everything is happening. Jethro, father-in-law, had to teach him and say, look, you will kill yourself and you will kill the people. Share this power. Captains of 50, let them discuss. Captains of 100, leaders of 100, let them do. Let the big matters come to you. And this is just like saying, recognize local government, recognize state government, and then, the big matters, exclusive matters will come to the seat, to the highest seat of power. Well, this is what the Lord will have me to break at this time, and I believe that it is some light. And if you take time to think about it, reflect on this, and meditate on this, maybe big light will come out of it. There is a lot more to say, concerning Nigeria's second 49 years, but this just to answer, why are we having protests, and are these protests going to end soon? Will they end soon? What are we supposed to do? I believe that light has come. And I pray that you will share this video, let it get to Nigerians and all who are praying for Nigerians at this time. The Lord bless you in Jesus' name. Amen.